ever feel like you've never fully mastered anything on the drums? Like you rarely actually feel comfortable and confident in what you're playing. If you practice dozens of coordination exercises, but you still don't feel like you can actually play the ideas in your head. Hey, I've been there. I practiced coordination exercises for years, and I even worked through realistic rock when I was in high school. But it wasn't until years later that I actually felt coordinated and confident in my abilities to actually play the ideas in my head. I'll share with you how that happened, and you'll learn the 4-step coordination test, which truly is the secret to mastering anything. Stick with me today, and you'll finally feel like you're playing with command, purpose, and intentionality, able to play the ideas in your head. You can do this. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm glad you're hanging out with me today. I help self-taught beginner drummers know what to practice so that you can nail songs and so that you can sound awesome with a band. I want you to become the drummer that other people want to play with and want to jam with, which is a really fun place to be. And hey, I have a free gift for you in the description that will help you get to that point, because in order to do that, in order to jam well with people, you've got to be able to play the ideas you hear in your head. And if you've had trouble with that, today's lesson is going to help you out a bunch with that, for one thing. But I also have a free PDF resource I want to give you. It is my Play What's in Your Head free e-guide, 30 days to 4-way rock coordination for the beginner drummer. This system is really cool because it gives you 30 grooves to work on day after day. You can do one each day. You could take a couple days on one, and there's no rules here. You do what you need to do. Most students, when they get to like day 10, 12, 15, they're seeing huge results even by then. So at least commit to getting halfway through it. Get to like day 10, day 15, and you'll see some big results from this, and you'll find you're starting to be able to play what's in your head, and you're even getting toward where you're able to improvise, which is an awesome feeling. So go grab the 30 days to 4-way rock coordination guide, especially if you're a beginner. It's going to help you out a bunch. My free gift to you. All right, let's dive into today's lesson. That really will be a great companion for you, because we're talking about coordination today. And really what we're talking about today, you can then use and apply to that PDF guide. So definitely grab that, because that gives you the nitty-gritty stuff, like the practical, concrete, here's what to practice. And really today's lesson is giving you the how to practice that so that you now actually feel coordinated. So you actually feel like you're gaining facility around the kit and can truly play what's in your head, because it took me some time to get there. I was working the exercises like I told you and worked through realistic rock, but it was years later that I actually felt fully in control and confident behind the drums. And really we can boil that down to this whole concept we're talking about today. The coordination test. So it's this. Most people think that you've mastered a groove once you can play it, right? Like you can play whatever the groove is. Okay, I've mastered it. Let's check the box and move on. But the truth is that you haven't really mastered it until you can play it at any volume and any tempo. Now, of course, this is within reason. We're not talking about playing so hard you're busting heads or so soft that you're like tapping with your fingers. Within reason. And we're not talking about 600 beats a minute and 20 beats a minute. We're talking about reasonable ranges here, so don't go crazy. But once you can play the given groove that maybe right now you can play at your comfort tempo and your comfort dynamic, once you can play it at a deeper dynamic range, like pretty loud and pretty soft, at a wider tempo range, really slow, pretty fast, now you're getting somewhere, because now you're able to take that groove that you thought you knew and play it different ways and make it feel different. And that's a huge way to bridge the gap toward can I say the word improvisation? Toward improvisation. That gets you to where you're able to start playing the ideas in your head, because you're having to step out of that box of, well, this is the way I learned it, and you're now having to make it feel different by going slower, faster, louder, softer. So here's how we're going to do this. We're breaking this down into 4 steps to truly mastering something. And really that something can be anything. Like this applies to anything you're learning on the drums. But today we're just going to have an example groove. Our groove is going to be a real simple. If you're a beginner, hopefully you can play that along with me. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. That's what's happening on the kick. Nice and simple. So there's our core groove. Let's say we can play that. And let's say as a beginner, you feel like, you know what, I can play it. I've mastered it, let's check the box. Well, we're gonna start widening your tempo range and widening your dynamic range. Here's what I want you to do. Step 1 is take this groove, or it can be another groove. You don't have to do the same groove I'm doing, but you can follow along with me. Take a groove that you feel like you know well and loop it a few times until it's feeling good. We're gonna do it at 80 beats a minute. So I'm gonna turn on my metronome here in my ears at 80 beats a minute. which is roughly where we were a second ago, maybe a little slower. That puts us right here. So there's our tempo. Let's say that's our comfort tempo. Now, your comfort tempo might be different. You might be like, 90 feels comfortable to me, 70 feels comfortable to me. That's what I do want you to play around with here and find. Like right now, what is your default? When you sit down at the drum set, everybody has a default thing they play. Everybody has a default groove where you sit down at the kit and there's just the thing that you play. What is your thing that you play? Maybe it's the groove I just played or something like it. My default as a beginner was what I just played you. It was that groove. I would sit down and I would go real stiff and like beginner like. You know how it goes. That was my default, and that was probably the tempo. I don't know what your default groove is or what your comfort tempo is or your comfort volume, but that's what I want you thinking about because only you know it. Only you know where do I feel most comfortable now dynamically, how loud I'm hitting, and tempo-wise, how fast I'm playing. I'm going to give you examples to start with, but I want you to find your own. So mine, for sake of our example, is 80 beats a minute. Let's say that's my comfort tempo, and so I'm going along at 80 beats a minute. Now what we want to do, step 2, is increase the tempo 10 clicks faster, 10 beats per minute faster. So you've got your metronome on, and we're now bumping it up to 90, from 80 to 90. So here is 90 beats a minute, which sounds like this. And 1, 2, ready, go. Now, something really important here is as you're doing this, you're listening, you're paying attention. Okay, what's happening as I'm going faster? Did I get tighter? Did my shoulders hunch up? Did things get stiffer? Am I dragging? Am I rushing? Sometimes when you get faster, you overcompensate and you rush. What's going on here? How am I feeling? What do I need to pay attention to and adjust? What helps with that analysis is recording yourself. I can't tell you that enough times. Video yourself with your phone. You don't need fancy cameras or microphones. Your phone is perfectly fine. And if you have an iPhone or like an iPad, a MacBook, those things have great microphones. You can make such good videos and such good recordings with Apple products that most of us have on hand. And so just take your phone, video yourself, record yourself, whichever you want to do, and listen back, watch, see how you're looking. What change happened going that 10 clicks faster? Maybe we started at 80 and we went to 90. What changed? What do I need to focus on here? Do I need to slow down 5 and go back to 85? Okay, now back to 90. We're very slowly, we might take a few steps forward and a few steps back, a few steps forward, a few steps back, but we're carefully seeing, can we go faster and what's going to happen here as we start getting faster? But also, we want to decrease the tempo. So let's practice going slower, which a lot of times is the harder one. We started at 80 beats a minute. Let's say that was our comfort tempo. Now we want to go slower, which takes us down to 65, going 15 clicks slower. So here is 65 beats a minute, which is very slow. Here we go. 1, 2, ready. So probably the initial thing, if you were anything like me, then your default tendency is to rush when you're going that slow. Especially if you're playing softly right now, if your default volume is like, you start to stumble over yourself and go faster because it's really hard to play quiet and slow. So if you're playing kind of quiet right now, going that slow is tough. You're having to really listen. You're really having to hold yourself back. And that's where something that we talked about last week a little of grip and motion and how you're holding your sticks can play into this big time. When you're trying to play something that's slow and soft like that, it can help a lot to grip further up your sticks like this. If you're playing big and loud, you might want to grip further down your sticks. It all depends on your personal preference and what makes sense for you, but know that how you're gripping can play into how well you do this, which is what we talked about last week as we were talking about timing and playing with better timing. So definitely check out some of the additional lessons here on the channel about grip and motion. If you feel like that might be a weakness, like you feel like you're insecure in your grip and it feels awkward and that's what's tripping you up, because that could very well be what's going on here. Or it could be deeper stuff going on, which is what we covered last week in the method for good timing that nobody talks about, which is pretty cool stuff that that really helped me a lot of getting into that mental space of, okay, how do I play with better time? Let's work smarter, not harder. And so that's in last week's lesson. Go check that out if you missed it. So we've gone faster, we've gone slower. So if our default tempo is 80, we've now gone up to 90, we've gone down to 65. But now we also want to start, so we've widened our tempo range, we want to start now deepening our dynamic range. How much louder can we go? How much softer can we go? So going back to 80 beats a minute, let's go back to our original tempo of 80, and let's just see how loud we can play. You can get crazy with this if you want to, or you can keep it within reason. It's all up to you. So here we go. It feels totally different when you play that hard. Your snare sounds different. You're having to play the kick harder to match. The hi-hats are going to get more sloshy unless you're keeping them really tight. Everything sounds different. Everything feels different. The grip is different. The motion is different. I'm now gripping down here. If I'm going to play that loud and I'm moving around the kit a lot, I'm gripping down here. I'm going. So that I've got some more stick to play with, some more throw, some more reach, versus, okay, now let's go really soft. We're gonna stay 80 beats a minute, but now we're gonna play really soft. Here we go. One big shift that I made there was gripping further up my sticks. If you want to play softly, especially playing lightly on the ride, grip a lot further up your stick. Use smaller sticks. These are 5B hickories. I like my 5A maples for lighter playing. They're a little bit smaller because they're 5As, but they're also lighter weight because they're maple. So I go back and forth between they're around here somewhere. I don't know where I have them, but my 5A maples just feel really light, good for soft playing in a small room. 5B hickories feel nice and heavy for playing loud. Both of those sticks are the same length. 5Bs are just slightly bigger diameter, and they're heavier if they're hickory, lighter if they're maple. So big difference, big thing we're paying attention to is, okay, gripping further up so we get a lighter response from the sticks, but also making sure we're not getting tight. It's easy to get tight when you play soft sometimes, just like how it's easy to get stiff and monkey armed if we're playing loud. So again, you're filming yourself. You're filming and you're saying, okay, how do I look physically as I'm playing loudly? How do I look physically as I'm playing softly? And again, you'll notice that that groove feels totally different. Like if we're down here playing really soft, that's just so different from it's just a world of difference in how it sounds and how it feels and how you sound and how you feel and what the mental space is you have to get into as a drummer to execute either of those. And so they're light years apart, and that's why this is a neglected type of practice that a lot of us miss. I missed it for a long time. For the first several years of my playing, I got to where I had comfort tempos, I had comfort dynamics, and my comfort dynamic was just playing softly, and my comfort tempo quickly increased. I got to where I could play soft and fast really well, but slow was not good and loud was not good. Everything I played sounded like and it was all a little bit frantic and stiff at the same time, but it was all soft and brrrr. And so what I had to work on was the slow and the loud. And there's some very interesting benefits that come from practicing slow and loud. And a big one is that when you practice playing something very slowly, you're hearing every note you play. So you're listening more, you're paying attention to how it feels. How is my timing? Is this smooth? But also when it's really loud, you're just having to pay attention to the motion you're using. How am I hitting? You know, when you're playing like that, it's all so specific and there's not a lot of room to just kind of fake your way through something. Like if you're playing softly, you can go. You can add in a lot of notes and it might sound cool or it might sound sloppy, but when you're playing something that's very big and loud and slow, there's not really room for that. You're having to really pay attention to what you're doing. And that was what happened with me. When I was in college, a drumming mentor sat me down and said, hey, you need to eliminate the fluff from your playing. A lot of times you've got too many notes going on. A lot of times your fills are getting lost. A lot of times you're sounding like this. Did you catch that? How I was playing loud, but the fill was soft. The fill needs to stick out more. And so that was something he noticed. Okay, I need to shift my thinking here. So the fill can be heard. It has to be more intentional. And so I started practicing playing slowly and loudly. And I realized, okay, those are the big holes here. If we picture this XY graph here, my tempo is getting faster, but I need to work on the slow tempos. My dynamics were getting wider, but I needed to work on the loud stuff. And so there were big holes. And so I had to work on getting even with that. So this brings us to the final step of just record yourself doing this. I can't say that enough. Video yourself, record yourself. That's what I finally started doing once I was in college. I wish I had done it sooner. I had some old cheap digital cameras in high school I could have used, and I had cheap recording gear that could have worked. Record yourself, listen back, watch yourself, and how am I doing? And then over time, work on widening that range more and saying, okay, comfort tempo is 80, let's get to 100, 115, 120, and so on, feeling, gradually getting faster and faster. And you'll find that this gives you the ability to play something that's simple that you thought you had mastered a million different ways. It feels so different at every dynamic and every volume. And so now you're really getting into true mastery. And hey, just another extra thing I didn't have in my outline, but I just thought of this. We've talked about this a little before on the channel. You can also take the concept of, okay, here's our groove. How many different ways can we change this groove? So what if as we get louder, we move our stick over to the ride bell? So what if we're now going... What if when we get softer, we're going to cross stick? Or what if when we're soft, what if we do this instead? That's kind of cool. What if when we get louder, we open the hi-hats a little bit? What if we practice going from soft to loud, like... So many things you can do, and the ways that you can move your hands around and say, I'm going to hit the tom instead of the snare, cross stick instead of center, bell instead of bow, edge instead of top, open instead of closed. When you start taking that mindset, not only are we playing something at different tempos and different dynamics, but you're making it feel completely different, but we're not even changing the core rhythm of it. And so now you're playing a core groove so many, like a limitless number of ways. And so now you're fully bridging that gap of going from stuck in the box, stuck in the rut of having to play this, to now, oh, okay, what if I start changing it up even more now? These are all things that coordination helps you do. And you're building coordination in this whole process. So if you combine this with the free e-guide I told you about earlier, the 30 days to 4-way rock coordination for the beginner drummer, I give you all these little examples of grooves to practice every day. It's a lot of fun. Take any one of those and then stretch yourself, literally stretch yourself by seeing how slow can I go, how fast can I go, how loud can I go, how soft can I go, how can I change it so I'm not playing exactly what Steven wrote here, but how can I make it more interesting? How can I make it more fun and change my approach? That is a mindset thing, and that will widen your coordination, so your coordination really starts to explode, and it will really help you step into those improvisational abilities you didn't know you have. I believe you have them. I believe everybody's got some creativity and improvisational ability deep down inside. You just got to find it, and sometimes you just have to make yourself do it, and that's literally the secret. And so here's what's going to happen. Take action on this. Take me up on this. Work on, do all of these things. Don't neglect any of this. Even record yourself, film yourself. You're going to go from feeling uncoordinated and always feeling like you're halfway learning stuff and you're on the edge of messing up, where maybe you're kind of clumsy, you're not in command, you're not intentional and purposeful, and things don't come across the way you want them to on the drums. You'll go from living in that land, which is where I was in all of high school, and kind of getting into college until I finally started to focus in and get better at this stuff, thanks to some great teachers and mentors helping me out. you can go from all that to feeling like you finally mastered something, like feeling like, hey, I can play this groove in my sleep because I can play it a million different ways for you. That is a song, like a song execution skill. When you can play a groove a million different ways, in most songs, like a lot of pop songs have the same groove. Like how many songs have this? Or maybe it's faster. You know, the 4 on the floor is so common, but if we can play it at every volume, every tempo, we can move it around in different ways, well, now you can play a whole bunch of songs. It's not just, I can play this groove, it's I can play a wide spectrum of songs. That's what I want you to be, because now you're finally mastering things so that you can play with command, purpose, and intentionality, which means the ideas in your head can now come out of your head and onto the drum set. That is an amazing feeling, and that is what I want for you today. So take me up on this. Take action. This whole thing has helped me out so much. It's helped my students out time and time again. Go grab the free e-guide, my gift to you, that gives you the what to practice this week. And everything we've discussed today is the how. Combine these two things and you've got the marriage of coordination explosion. You're going to grow like crazy. So, hey, question for you as you go. Do you have a weak tempo or a weak volume that you have identified? If not, I want you to think about it right now. My weak tempo was 100, like that 90 to 110 range. That was my weak tempo. I was pretty good at playing the slow stuff. Like 70 to 75, that became my comfort zone. And then 140. For some reason, that was my comfort tempo, 70, 140. 120 was okay, but if I got slower than 120, I was constantly rushing. 90 was okay, but I would always want to drag at 90. So you might find you have a weak tempo. Target that weak tempo. I told you my weak volume was loud. I was not good at playing loud. I was not good at going really slow either, like down to like 60 and slower. That was tough. But loud was not good. I had to really focus on reworking my grip and paying attention to motion and all of that, which I've told you we've got other stuff about here on the channel. Linking those below for you to go check out. But that'll help you out with that too. What's your weak tempo? What's your weak volume? Identify those things, do some self-analysis, record yourself, video yourself, and you'll make a ton of progress, I promise you. So, I hope you have a great week. I'm so glad you hung out today. I hope this has been a valuable lesson for you. Grab the e-guide, my free gift to you. As always, stay non-glamorous and know that no matter what level you're at right now, even if you're brand new to the drums today, you can do this. I'll see you next time.